Get the first pick, huh?
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to call our special meeting, our work session to order. Ms. Bowie, would you call the roll, please?
Good afternoon. Pete Wildebohr,
Present?
Pat Bradford, Josie
He's here.
She say it.
Okay.
Here. Okay.
Josie Barnhill,
Here.
Stephanie Craybill, Melissa Mason,
Here.
Okay, we
Hugh
do have a-
McManus, Hugh McManus,
Here.
and Stephanie and Stephanie Walker.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we do have a quorum present. At this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda. Second.
Ms. Mason, Ms. Barnhart, thank you very much. Any discussion?
Yes,
Go ahead.
I would like to amend the, excuse me, amend the agenda to add,
This is a work session.
oh, sorry, never mind.
Okay, okay. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 6-0. Our first and only order of business for the work session is a discussion of equity, diversity, and inclusion. This was actually brought forth by Ms. Barnhart, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason why I suggested us having a work session is we all cannot get together until, unless if we have an open meeting law. So there has been a lot of varying degrees of what is EDI and where did it come from. So I know that when I was looking into this, the committee started 3 boards ago and 2 superintendents ago. And so Dr. Faust, as we come into this, would you help share the thought process of what you were charged with of what this is, and then we can go into discussion.
Sure. So EDI was already in existence when I got here. So there were already regulations that they were already using. I think it's mine. So honestly, I don't know if there's a document that's written for EDI, and if that's a thing. If Ms. Mason, I don't know if you have any documents or anything, I don't know. But I don't think there's a document that's written of how you're selected, or who's selected, or the formation of the committee.
And so, Mr. Chair, my thought process of us coming together was to be able to help lay out what that groundwork is and how we move forward. Because in the past, with previous boards, there was a heavy emphasis on just demographic makeup. And when I think about equitable opportunity, that's what I'm talking about, is making sure that we have opportunities for all of our students in every single school, and that is through providing opportunity. And so looking at this, some of the things that kind of happened in the name of equity that I feel are virtue signaling is lowering the grading system to be 50, the push to end suspensions for disproportionality, as well as ending seclusions with disproportionality was the equity push, looking at the result rather than focusing on the input and ensuring that our staff is acting with fidelity and integrity for every situation. And so what I would like to know is kind of help lay that groundwork so we're on the same page of what that expectation is for the word equity so that it's not being misinterpreted, it's not being subjectively defined, it is consistency and fairness. And you've heard me use that language multiple times because I believe that no matter what school you go to, you should have great opportunities. And I think that is through the ideas of scaffold instruction. So to have reteaching material for students who are lower achieving, to have supports for our special needs students, supports for our multilingual students, and then high achieving students in AIG having a pathway for that. And I believe that if we lay the groundwork in every single school with those ideas in mind, then we're going to see the results of success. And that leads me to think, well, what is success? For me, when you're looking at school and a successful student, it looks like we're either ready for the workforce, they're ready for college, they're ready for sports opportunity or potential military engagement. And so I think when we're looking at how we are moving forward and what that looks like, that was where I wanted the discussion to become, because I know some of us, as you go into some of these interpretive ideas of equitability and mental health, and as well as behavior, I think those things get very interpreted. And so I would just like for us to come together and help talk about what that looks like. So, Mr. Chairman, that was my thought process in having this open dialogue, so we can kind of get us on the same page.
Would anyone else like to speak? Ms. Walker.
I'm curious. I think everybody knows what equity is, and I'm just curious. Sounds like everything you said is equity, and so I don't think we're far apart on that. So I guess what I want to know why we came here a half hour early to talk about was, are we trying to get rid of the committee? Are we? I know the policy we looked at, we're removing words, so I just want to know what the intention is, because I don't think there's subjectivity when it comes to this word. And I'm addressing it to the chair, but anyone else is free to answer.
If I could just throw out my, I think one thing that Dr. Pass and I talked about briefly the other day when we were talking about what this discussion could be. And I think part of it is, we're talking about equity of opportunity, or we're talking about equity of results. We're talking about equity, sorry about that, equity of opportunities, equity of results. I think we just need to clear, I would agree, I think it's good that we all have at least the same ideas, or at least we know what we're talking about. Yes.
So last night at the E.D.I. committee meeting, I actually asked for a definition of equity. All the research I've done, I'm a big words person, so I looked up what generally in the world equity means, and in the world generally, it appears to relate to outcome. However, when we talked last night, what was brought to light was that it is ensuring that all students have what they need. And when I hear that definition, I have to be honest, I don't think equity, I think accessibility. And so I think there's some confusion because the typical definition of equity is generally based around outcome, whereas the definition that the school district is using and the definition that we have defined in all of our paperwork and our website are all related to accessibility. And so I think that's where the confusion is. I think we need to settle on what does it actually mean. If indeed it means outcome, then that's, a discussion to have. If it means accessibility, perhaps we need to figure out a different word, because that's where I think the confusion is.
Others that haven't spoken yet? Mr. McManus.
Thank you. I think that the equity and our whole E.D.I. committee has been here for a while. I'm kind of lost in understanding why this has become such a big issue, the word equity. And so without going into a long drawn out barrage, I'd like to simply say, I think you didn't make the county commissioners meeting yesterday, but they hand out, I wish we could do the same thing. One little sheet of paper front and back, and they had 4 or 5 speakers, and then they moved on. But I noticed at the very bottom of this, they stated their mission. This is the county commissioners who provide us with our funds. New Hanover County is committed to providing equitable opportunities and exceptional public services through good governance to ensure a safe, healthy, secure, and thriving community. Well, I can see how you could put in the school. Second, a vibrant, prosperous, diverse coastal community committed to building a sustainable future for future generations. And last, core values, professionalism, equity, integrity, stewardship, and accountability. So I guess my question is, are the county commissioners going to address this? Since we work in strong, we share with each other, and they're some of our biggest supporters, thank goodness.
Anyone else? Oh, hey, Ms. Gribble. Welcome.
I'm so sorry, it's been a day from, where.
I can imagine. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. Would you like,
Talking about equity.
would you like to join in?
Yeah, I'll catch up, you don't have to restart for me, you guys I brought some handouts if anybody wanted. If anybody wants to look at the definitions that we're currently using, I'm sure we've probably already talked about that. If you want to take one and pass it, about our mission and vision statement that we have from New Hanover County Schools. And then I had emailed you guys some information from a class that I have been taking about equity, diversity, and inclusion, giving ideas about different definitions. There's no definition that's right or wrong. We just have to, decide. But it looks like we've already decided on our own webpage. So I didn't know if that's what we were talking about, changing what we've already decided as our definitions. So
Well, we're just discussing what exactly the definition is. Are we talking about, I guess one question has been brought up, are we talking about equitable outcomes? Are we talking about equitable opportunities? Are we talking about both?
yeah, and I'm
accessibility.
sorry that I missed. I'll go back and catch up. But I'm confused about if we're talking about inputs versus outputs. I was completely confused at our agenda review, so I don't know what that means. But you don't have to catch me up. I will listen and pay attention.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Walker?
So I guess the confusion for me too is that, we are a partisan board, but we're not supposed to be when it comes to, how we make decisions. And I know the E.D.I. committee and things that are of E.D.I. have been through boards that have been both parties, so majority. And so I think, I just want to know why now we have to change what we're doing. I mean, I'm all for doing more, and I know in our EDI committee, we bring up a lot of important points. I'm not really sure where we're stuck, though. I mean, opportunity to me is what I think about, having the students having the opportunity, and whatever we can do to make that happen is important to me in my role. So I don't know what the outcome is of this work session, or going forward, what it's going to change, or if anything, but I'm glad to have it, and I hope that we can come to some agreement and not probably focus so much on the words as much as the work. So.
Ms. Barnhart?
And I'll speak to that. So I do believe that it should be opportunity, and I think in previous leadership, it has focused on outcome. And so if we can talk about what the expectation is and be able to discuss it. Like I mentioned to all of us, I'm going to reiterate, to create opportunity to have space for remediation learners, to have supports for our multilingual learners, to have supports for our special needs students, and to have a pathway for AIG. And I feel like creating those opportunities is intentionality. And I guess the question for me becomes, because you were asked about the committee, was our staff not doing that? I mean, and that's genuine asking, because if we're looking at saying that the idea is to provide that opportunity, then is a committee the person doing that, or is it every single staff in our building on the same page to provide an opportunity for every single student in our district? And I mean that genuinely when I'm asking that question, because if we believe as leaders in this district that our staff is not doing that, then I think maybe we should look at our hiring practices, because I think that every single person we hire should be of the mindset that all kids can achieve, and we need to equip kids with the tools for academic success. And so, Mr. McManus, to your point when asking about the county commissioners, I think about how does that apply to education? And I just gave you the 4 areas that I think that we need to be intentional with support and education. So I'm not saying this was not an intent or attack to say, oh, this is where it is. I have been vocal that I don't think a point position is a necessary position, because I believe it's every single person inside of our buildings doing the job to support all students. And that's where I'm coming from with this. And so that is my mindset behind it. But I think as far as terms that it comes to school, what does that look like when you're talking about what you talked about, accessibility and opportunity, but the equity definition from the federal government is disproportionality in outcomes. And so like what Ms. Mason said, the disconnect of, I do not want to focus on the outcome, I want to focus on intentional input. Because if our staff are doing the input that they're supposed to be doing, and that's what I'm talking about, input of the work that we're putting into it, then the results should also follow.
Ms. Craven?
So-
Absolutely.
And maybe if I missed this, then I'm sorry. What intentional inputs are you talking about? I mean, yeah, like what? Yeah, if she may, because
Yeah, sure.
I don't understand what you mean by all of our staff doing intentional inputs. I don't know what action we would take with that.
And I'll answer this, and I know I'm going to let other people speak, but like I said, for me, it looks like the areas of scaffolding and support for our students in academics. So making sure that all of our teachers are equipped with remediation. So we know that we have students behind, and so making sure they're equipped with the ability to bring students back up, to have supports for our special needs students, supports for our multilingual students, and supports for our AIG students, to make sure that all of our students are challenged and met where they need to be with academics. And so that, to me, again, trying to define what that looks like, I'm trying to share my best understanding of what that is, an equitable opportunity or an accessibility piece of what we should be striving for in our district. And so that's where the question becomes, was this committee created because that was not happening? Our staff was not acting at that fidelity. That's what I was
The
asking.
EDI committee?
Oh, Ms. McGinnis, I'm sorry.
Thank you. May I suggest that I would like to, I'm sure we all will, Melissa and Walker and myself, invite you to the next EDI committee meeting, because they're the ones who represent and who come and who have bought into and support the program, and have a dialogue with the committee, because that's where it needs to be. And Malcolm, I hope that we send her a formal invitation with the next EDI, and let's discuss it. I think it's a great idea.
Actually, that would be Melissa would be the person to invite.
Ms. Walker?
Well, I guess, I think a lot of good points are made here, but I don't think we're saying things that differently, I'll be honest. But I will say, this discussion, the idea to have this discussion kind of arose out of the policy committee trying to remove words from our policy. And I just don't understand that, because obviously equity can be defined however we are thinking about it right here in this moment. But removing these words from policy, I just don't see the point of doing it. I mean, they are what they are. And, we shouldn't be afraid to talk about equity in whatever way we choose to, or the word social emotional learning, which is a part of our curriculum. So I don't know what the outcome is again from this meeting, but I agree. I hope you come to the next EDI meeting. There are a lot of good discussions that we have, and maybe that will help with understanding and bring us closer to what the idea of it means.
Ms. Craven?
Yeah, I agree with what Ms. Walker said, but I'd also like to call us back to some earlier conversations about, especially like, I'm going to use the legislative committee as an example, where we're going to talk about that later, of not having a designated representative, to liaison to the NCSBA, because we think it's all board members' responsibilities to stay in touch. And so to that point, Mr. McManus, they did talk about that at the EDI committee meeting, and I went to that meeting. I watch them all. And so maybe it's something that each of our board members need to commit to watching what the EDI committee is doing, listening to their notes, talking to Melissa. Melissa can be our guide. She's the leader of that committee and can keep us all informed on things that parents are bringing up, that teachers are bringing up. And if we have concerns about scaffolding for students, which I haven't heard any, if we have concerns about teachers not being able to differentiate in their classroom, well, that's not a board issue. That's a, Dr. Faust and Dr. Faison, issue, if they've heard that. And then supports for AIG, multi-language learners, special education, we have all those things. So I'm not certain what we're trying to do. So I would just encourage us all to watch the EDI committee meetings, look at their minutes and their notes, look at their mission vision, talk to some of the people that are on that committee who pour their heart and soul into that and come up with really good ideas. And they've got a really good blend of community, teachers, parents, central office staff. So that's, to me, one of the directions that we should consider before we, make any changes and wording changes.
Anyone else? All right. Well, with that, it is about 10 to 5. We do have a new meeting starting at 5. We do need a few minutes to change over. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. McManus, sorry.
I'd remind them to pick out their artwork.
Yeah, oh, yes. If you wouldn't mind running back there and do that. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second, Ms. Walker. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? We will start our next meeting promptly at 5 o'clock. We are adjourned.